Episode 2. The Crow Knew Something You Don't, on Shadow as Teacher. In 2019, a study published in the journal Cognitive Development found something that surprised researchers. When young children were shown an image of someone doing something harmful, but not immediately understanding what they had done, the children's distress was not primarily about the harm. It was about the gap between the action and the recognition. The children intuited, before they had language for it, that the most disturbing thing was not the act itself. It was the person who had acted, standing there, after, unable to see what they had done. That gap has a name in the architecture of consciousness, and one of the oldest texts in human history describes it with more precision than almost anything written since. Welcome back to MetaMind. I'm Jelani Garaui. The scene I want to walk you through today is from the Qur'an, chapter 5. But I want to say again what I said in the first episode: we are not reading this as religion. We are reading it as architecture. The scene involves two brothers. One kills the other, and then stands there. That's the setup. And in most readings, the story stops there. The killing is the event. The moral is extracted. Move on. But the text doesn't stop there. The text goes on to describe something that happens after. A crow arrives. The crow begins searching the ground, digging, moving things around. And the man who killed his brother watches the crow. And then he says something that stops me every time I read it. He says, "Am I not even capable of being like this crow, to conceal what I have done?" That's not a confession. That's not a moral statement. That is a man realizing, for the first time, that he doesn't know what to do with what he has created. In the MetaMind framework, we call this the perception gap. It is the space between the act and the awareness of the act. And here is the thing that most people don't understand about it. The act does not produce awareness. We assume it does. We assume that when something significant happens, especially something we have done, we automatically know what it means. That the weight of the event carries its own interpretation. It doesn't. What a significant act actually produces, in most cases, is not clarity. It produces a dense internal silence. Like a stone dropped into deep water. The surface freezes. The ripples don't reach the top. The water looks still. But something has moved, far below, in a place the eye cannot reach. The man standing over his brother's body was not a monster who didn't care. The text makes clear he was disturbed. He felt the weight of what had happened. But he had no tools to see it. He could see the body. He could not see the flaw in his own structure that had led to this moment. And that's the precision of the scene. The problem is not the act. The problem is the gap between the act and the vision of the act. Now we get to the most interesting question in the scene. Of all the things that could have appeared in that moment, a vision, a voice, a revelation, why a crow? Why does the text send a crow? In the framework we've developed at MetaMind, and you can read the full geometric analysis in the book, which I'll link in the description, the crow represents what we call a shadow pole. Here's what that means. In any situation where someone's awareness has frozen, there are two ways teaching can arrive. It can arrive from above, from a level of clarity that is higher than where the person currently is. Or it can arrive from the matching level, from the same density, the same weight, the same layer where the collapse actually happened. And here is the critical insight: when awareness is frozen, high-frequency light doesn't help. It makes things worse. A person who has just done something they can't yet see, and who is in the dense, stiffened state of the perception gap, cannot receive instruction from a higher register. The light is too bright for the closed eye. What they need is something that operates from the same level. Something earthbound. Something that works with what has fallen. Something that doesn't lecture, doesn't judge, doesn't explain. Something that just moves. And the crow moves. It searches the ground. It shows, without saying a single word, what it is to handle what has been left behind. And in watching that simple, wordless movement, the man's stiffness breaks. Not because he understood teaching, because he saw himself reflected in a creature he considered beneath him. And that mirror was more powerful than any sermon. The principle for your life. I want to bring this down to the level of your actual experience, because what I've just described is not ancient. It's this week. Think of the last time you did something, or didn't do something, avoided something, said something you knew wasn't true, and in the immediate aftermath, you felt not guilt, not remorse. Silence. A strange, thick silence, where you kind of knew something had happened but couldn't quite locate it, couldn't name it. And so you moved on, did something else, checked your phone, made a coffee, let time pass. That is the perception gap. And the question the MetaMind framework asks is not, what did you do wrong? The question is, what is the crow in your life right now? Because the crow always comes. Not in the form of a message. Not in the form of a lesson. In the form of something ordinary that reflects back to you, at exactly the right moment, what you can't yet see directly. A child saying something uncomfortably honest. A situation at work that keeps repeating in the same structural pattern. A relationship where the same argument has been playing for 3 years. The crow is already there. The question is only, are you watching it? In the next episode, we are going to go deeper into what the text calls the exposed flaw, the Arabic word sawa, which is almost always translated as shame or nakedness, but which in the geometric reading means something far more precise. It means the structural rupture that becomes visible when a pole of equilibrium has fallen. In other words, what you see when the mirror you didn't know you needed disappears. It's one of the most useful concepts I know for understanding why certain kinds of loss, not just the obvious losses, but the quiet ones, the departures, the endings that no one else seems to understand why you can't move on from, leave a specific kind of mark that ordinary grief frameworks don't quite capture. The full geometric analysis of the crow scene, 11 layers, from the perception gap through to what the text calls the moment of the hour, is in the book. The link is in the description. It's called the Crow Principle. It's a proper read. It will ask something of you. And it will return something as well. I'm Jelani Garaui. This is MetaMind. See you in the next one.